I'm Dana Han-Klein here with Niki Caro for The Zookeeper's Wife.
I feel like more and more we're seeing these sort of stories of unsung heroes of World War II, and for me what resonates most is not necessarily the heroes of the battlefield, but it's the stories of the sort of everyday people who stepped up and helped complete strangers. So what do you think keeps drawing us back to this particular time frame?
I think this is, Holocaust stories deserve to be told and retold, and particularly now. But this story in particular is so unusual and so surprising that this is a true story that none of us ever knew. So exotic and so domestic, largely taking place within the Warsaw Zoo. That in itself is a really compelling reason to revisit the genre, let alone the fact that, as you say, it's an ordinary couple who chose to do such an extraordinary thing for no other reason than it was the right thing to do.
Right, it's such a tough thing, in that circumstance, you don't even know if they start out doing it for their friends, but it becomes about complete strangers. Why do you think it's taken so long to sort of tell these stories and do them justice?
This means that there are probably more stories out there yet to be discovered. And the fact that this is a story with a woman at the center is probably reason to believe that there are many other stories from this time in history, or maybe any time in history, that speaks to the female experience.
It's wonderful to see, these stories being brought to light, and you have such a powerful actress in Jessica Chastain.
Yes.
So did you always envision her in the role?
Jessica was mine and literally everybody's first choice for the role, and happily she read the script and wanted to do it. She's a great animal lover. But I had no idea the extent to which she is a genuine animal whisperer. And I don't say that lightly. Like Antonina Żabińska, Jessica possesses this really otherworldly quality with animals, and to watch her communicate with them, which you can on screen, was to experience something really rare.
I just remember hearing in film school a joke about never work with children or animals, and you depend very heavily on both for this film.
Yeah.
So were there any challenges involved? Were you ever tempted, or did someone try and push you, be like, hey, don't use practical animals, use CGI?
Well, I would say always work with children and animals if you can, because they're so easy. They are always themselves. So really the trick is, or the philosophy is, if you're me, to never ask of them anything that they would not do naturally. And so we ran a very organic set, a very quiet and peaceful set, very respectful of the animals and the children and the babies. And we worked within exactly what they would do naturally. So it's always surprising, it's always organic, and it's always better than what anybody could ask an animal to do on the page, for instance.
Were there any particular moments that made it into the film that you were like, I had no idea this was going to happen?
There's a big sequence in the movie where Warsaw is bombed and bombs fall on the zoo, and a lot of the animals run away. And there was it's just a short scene on a page which talks about animals wandering the streets of Warsaw. And everybody would ask me, well, how are you going to do that? And yes, of course, there were the inevitable conversations about CGI animals, and for sure, technology can produce very, very credible animals, but it can never produce real animals. And I felt very strongly that I couldn't make a real and authentic movie from this material by using fake animals. So when you see the animals in the streets of Warsaw, they are real, a couple of real lions and a tiger having an amazing day. And as filmmakers, our job was just to make sure the area was barricaded really securely, and to figure out how to get the cameras into the environment with the animals, because of course you can't operate the cameras because the animals are too dangerous.
If you could pick one animal from the menagerie to be your spirit animal.
No, we all had one. No, every single person had a crush on an animal, and mine was the mother wolf. Czech wolf dog, and you'll see her in the opening sequence of the movie, and she can jump really high. She's amazing.
What part of this film did you most personally connect to?
I mean, it's a strange connection because it isn't cultural or religious or ancestral, but I coincidentally was educated in a synagogue. I'm not Jewish, but my parents went through a funky education phase, and a new school opened up in a synagogue, and that's where I spent my elementary school years, learning Hebrew, all the prayers, all the holidays, and it's maybe possibly one of the reasons why I became a filmmaker, because my parents both worked, and we had all the Christian holidays off and all the Jewish holidays, and so I was often not in school, so I would be at the movies.
When you're working on something sort of as heavy and dealing with something as heavy as the Holocaust, how do you sort of keep your eye on focusing and making sure like you and your team are not necessarily getting bogged down in, you know, the reality of what you're recreating?
Yeah, we did go down. We went very deep in pre-production. It was pretty distressing actually for all of us to really confront and consider the inhumanity of the Holocaust in order to recreate it faithfully and respectfully. You know, when it comes to production, really it's about getting it done in the time allowed, and getting it done really well. And I'm very proud of the way we've recreated those sequences.
Going back to what you said earlier about sort of this female-driven, and it's dynamic-wise, she does sort of go through this journey of, we're used to seeing women in, I feel like at least we're used to seeing women in World War II either portrayed as like super spies in these sort of fantastical stories, or they're this like quiet, supportive wife, and that is sort of how she starts, but she goes on this journey. So did that add the extra element to you, or is it just like, hey, look, this is just a character's journey?
Yes, of course it did. It's very exciting to me, and it was very compelling to see what female strength actually looks like. You know, there's a fantasy of the strong female character, which is like a super sexy, badass woman with breasts acting like a guy. And I'm very happy to move away from that into something that is real, where feminine strength is celebrated for its quietness and its compassion, its love, its empathy and maternity. All of those things I think are exciting, very fresh, and very relevant for these times.
I feel like we're currently on the verge of World War III, and I wish I was exaggerating.
Yeah.
And so I felt like it made this film even more timely. So if there's one thing you want people to take away from this, what would it be?
The Żabiński story, the story of a Polish Christian couple, an ordinary couple, who chose to save so many people at such risk to themselves, simply because it's the right thing to do, shows us a level of decency and humanity that I think is really important right now.
Great. Well, thank you so much.